welcome to New Trials of Podcast. I'm Preya.
And I'm Melanie.
The New Trials of Captor Sakura, Syaoran and Friends is a popular ongoing fanfic by Wishluv, and it's based off of Clamp's Captor Sakura. And in each episode, we'll do a deep dive of a chapter. Let's get into it. So we made it to New Year's, and it only took us to the beginning of March to get here.
I mean, because we were just talking before we got on this phone call, and this is our 6-month anniversary of doing this podcast. So it only took us 6 months.
6 months, almost end of arc 1. I think we're doing great.
Honestly, yes. Because I mean, what did it take? 8 months for Boy Meets World to get through season 1?
Yeah, and they were podcasting twice a week too, but one is for the episode recap and the other one is interviews. But
yeah,
no, for sure. No, I'm proud of us. It's a great stride.
Yeah, I am too.
For Alliance of the Stars, Nessel has commented on our latest post for chapter 18, and she wrote, "I'm with Melanie, and I imagine Xing as being an older man than he actually was." Laughing emoji. I think that's what really threw me off with figuring out his true identity too, even with all the hints. Which is funny for me, because I had guessed Kai's real identity, right after she mentioned she was looking for her brother Lol. But I also think it's due to Xing not being as prominent as Kaiju Magician. By the time Keisuke was introduced, I completely forgot Xing even existed. Ha ha ha. Kudos to Wish-chan for being so careful in her writing to make such intricate twists in her stories.
Yes, I'm glad someone agrees with me, and they also kind of pictured him as an old man the whole time. That makes me feel a lot better. Okay. And then also we have one from Carolina Ortiz again. And she just said, "Hi girls, thanks so much for the mention. I'm very entertained by your podcast. Melanie, I was surprised by your Spanish and your pronunciation is very good. Appreciate you keeping the story alive, which I'm so fond of. I remember the first time I read this chapter, I was very suspicious of Syaoran and I completely understood Sakura's distrust toward him. I also liked that during the whole chapter, they gave signals to SNS that they will never be happy together, just like their parents. Sorry, I like tragic. I love everything about Ryurin and Nadesco and the spontaneous development of the relationship that even though they ended in a very sad way, they both missed each other and remembered each other with special affection until the day of their deaths. Anyway, I think that since the previous chapter, a new stage begins for Sakura, where she begins to see people in herself in another way, in a not so pretty and innocent way, and even a little sad, but more realistic. Well, I've explained myself too much. It'll be better to say goodbye until the next one. Greetings from Buenos Aires."
She makes so many good points.
She does. And muchas gracias, Carolina. So sweet. But yeah, here pretty soon we're going to have our Q&A with Wish-chan, and Carolina poses such an amazing question for Wish-chan. I'm so excited to hear her answer to it. So stick around for that, guys. It's going to be a good one.
Okay, so we're discussing chapter 19, Dazzling Countdown, the New Year's Eve chapter. Melanie, do you have a New Year's Eve that comes to mind or a tradition that you'd like to talk about?
Oh, not really. We've never been huge New Year's Eve people. It just was never really a big thing. And the only funny one I could think of is one time for Christmas, my husband and myself and his family, we all traveled to Disney World for Christmas. And if you guys have never been to Disney World at Christmas, it is insane. It is so busy and so crowded. I've never been so thankful to be 6 foot in my entire life because I could breathe over everybody's head. It is crazy. So we had this whirlwind trip of Disney of 6 full days at Disney. And then we came back and we had the brilliant idea because we flew back on New Year's Eve, and we had the brilliant idea of, oh, let's have a couple friend over on New Year's Eve on New Year's Eve when we get back. And so our friends came over and we're like hanging out with them. And oh my God, by the time 9 o'clock rolled around, Pete and I just hit a wall and we were so tired. We were just exhausted. And our friends that were there, they were new parents and it was their first time away from their baby. So they were also tired. And so both of us, like couples, were just struggling to make it to midnight. And finally, it was so embarrassing. Finally, at 10:30, they're like, you know what? I think we're gonna go home. And Pete and I were like, oh my gosh, we're so tired and we want to go to bed.
And that, folks, is adulting.
Adulting at its finest, for sure. Like our friends and I, we always make fun of ourselves now because we're like, do you remember when the evening used to start at 10:30 and now that's very much bedtime? How about you, Priya?
Well, as long as I can remember, very cheesy and cliche, of course, but we always watched the ball drop in New York. The TV was on. I remember watching it with my family, and it's like, yeah, there's lots of stuff going on at New Year's Eve on television, but there's just something so like it's a tradition of it all. So I continued watching the ball drop, and then at New Year's Eve, I would have friends at my party, and we'd have this little tradition. Before midnight, we'd show like sad faces because it's the end of the year, and then after midnight, we'd get in like the same positions, and we'll do happy faces because start of the new year. So we have lots of sad versus happy in my friend group, and now it's like I'm just back to watching the ball drop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's such a cute idea, though. Doing the sad and happy faces. I love that.
Okay, so let's get into this chapter discussion. Chapter 19, Dazzling Countdown. I'm going to start with the summary. It was 2 days before New Year's Eve. Although it wasn't night, Sakura had a nightmare about running to Syaoran for safety, but only running into a cloaked man with a black skeleton face, holding up Syaoran's knife with blood and a hangman's noose. Sakura went through Syaoran's things to find the badge and the knife, but placed them back. She looked in the bathroom mirror and fainted once a skeleton reflection told her that he was watching her. When Sakura regained consciousness in Ariel's arms, she decided to prevent him from knowing her troubles. Syaoran wondered why Sakura went through his things. The next day, Ariel told Syaoran that if he continued his behavior towards Sakura, he would lose her because she wouldn't trust him. Feeling hot-headed, Syaoran challenged Ariel to a duel to see who was better, but Sakura broke it up before it got out of hand. On New Year's Eve, Sakura was still avoiding Syaoran, but he was secretly keeping an eye on her at every moment. When Sakura spotted a cloaked figure, she followed him outside, while Syaoran was at her heels. After seeing the figure disappear, she realized that everyone in the ballroom disappeared, and she couldn't see herself either. When Syaoran lost her, he got Ariel, Miho, and all four guardians to help search for her. When Syaoran stopped Sakura from running away from him, he held her close to him in a back hug and convinced her to trust him. The invisibility let go of its hold on Sakura, and she felt safe in Syaoran's arms. He was ready to tell her something when Miho interrupted them and he got flustered. Sakura knew all along that along with the invisible, they must deal with the explosive, which will go off with the fireworks causing damage, and an unknown, the cloaked figure. As the fireworks were starting, Sakura was battling the unknown until she and Syaoran defeated it, while Ariel contained the power of the explosive. Sakura captured the three cards at once. The unknown was named the Stalker. Before the clock struck 12, everyone gathered at Times Square with the exception of Sakura and Syaoran, who were on the roof. Sakura realized that she still loved Syaoran. Using the explosive that Sakura gave to him, Syaoran put a spectacular fireworks show, making the last display a cherry blossom for Sakura. So in the new New Trials timeline, this chapter was released in January 2001. So even in canon, we've entered a new year for the series. Yeah, so January 2001. The words are 8,250 words long, longer than the previous chapter. Everyone's in the 8th grade. And at this point of the winter holiday, we start specifically on December 29th, and the chapter ends after the countdown to New Year's begins. So we get a really pinpoint idea of where we are.
So have you heard of this thing called maladaptive daydreaming?
No, but I feel that's what Sakura went through.
So apparently there's such a thing called maladaptive daydreaming. I might not be saying that 100% correct, but it's when you daydream so intensely that it almost is like you're dreaming while you're awake. And it's almost like you kind of put yourself into like a trance or hypnotic state. And they say, like, if you ever go to those shows where there's like a hypnotist and they have people under hypnosis and stuff, they say that's kind of what they do to you, is they kind of put you in this maladaptive daydreaming state where you're awake, but yet your brain and subconscious is kind of dreaming, basically.
When I was reading that, I just figured that the erase did nothing to help Sakura's PTSD.
Right.
So at the top of this chapter, I was really excited to see her doing tarot with her Clo cards. So she pulled up the shadow, the haunt, the mirror, the illusion, and the erase. Now I get like shadow follows you around like a stalker. And the same could be said for the haunt. And erase is a good clue about the invisible. But how would you interpret mirror and illusion?
Maybe the only way I can think of that is illusion would make you think you're seeing something, but you're really not. So like when she's in the ballroom and she thinks everyone's disappeared, but they really are not. That is for illusion. Mirror, though, maybe the mirror is telling her that she needs to look within herself for the real truth, and she needs to realize that Syaoran is not her enemy, and that all the problems are what the cards are making her think within herself. Is, I guess, how I would interpret
I
the
like your
mirror.
interpretation, because like even illusion, because as I was reading it, I forgot about what happened to Sakura in the ballroom until I actually got to that part in the chapter, so I didn't put the two together. But mirror is like that's probably her most personal card of her deck.
Only
Yeah,
one that lets her communicate with her cards too.
exactly. And if there's going to be one card that represents her in a sense, it's basically like the star card.
Yes, yes. Indeed.
Okay, so we have Syaoran brooding in a corner after he was able to tell Sakura like went through his things. And then there was that scene where it's like, doesn't she know that blah blah blah? Doesn't she know that is the last thing? I'm like, Syaoran, if you don't tell her, she won't know.
Communication. It's not hard.
Now we definitely get to the breaking point and finally like things turn for the better at the end of the chapter. But here it was like we're really seeing the cracks forming, and it's like it can only go so far now.
Oh my gosh. I love these New York chapters. I really do, but they're so frustrating at the same time.
It's like he was annoyed that she thought he was guilty while not doing anything to let her know that he's on her side. It's like, come on, Syaoran. It's like you got to work a little harder here.
Preach, preach.
We get a fun dress shopping scene. So I want to know how are you like when it comes to shopping for clothes?
I don't mind it. I don't do it super often anymore, but I don't mind it. Do you like to shop?
No, for me, I was never a fan. I'm like generally just interested in the whole thing. It's like, yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I wouldn't really go out and buy stuff for myself. My mom, on the other hand, she knows my style to a T. So when she goes out and she sees something that I would like, she would pick it up, and 9 times out of 10, she gets it right. So we get Ariel's action plan number 3, Sharon's inability to express his feelings in words. But that didn't get anywhere because in the scene he was very sleepy. And I have to say, your sleepy Syaoran is very cute.
Well, what's funny is so as you guys might have seen last week, we had some technical difficulties with this chapter. And so I was actually kind of glad I had to re-record this section because the first time I actually did this take, if you want to call it that, I didn't realize that Syaoran needed to be sleepy, I guess, until I was like sort of a little bit more into it. So I wasn't 100% happy with my performance. And so I'm glad I got to redo it. So thank you.
I thought it was funny that by the time he did come to his senses and he stormed to Ariel's room to yell at him for insulting him, like instead of waiting till the next morning, it's like he has no chill.
And I think it's Nakaru that says he's coming to wake us all up in the middle of the night just because he's mad that you don't try to talk to him while he was sleepy.
Nakura, keeping it real.
But I like Soupy answering the door. What do you want?
And it's like chapter 19 is pretty fuzzy for me. Last time I read it was like probably, I don't know, I think it's 2017. And as I'm rereading it or listening to your audio, we get our first battle of the sun versus moon.
Yes, yes. And when I had to do my re-record, it was because I completely lost this entire chunk of dialogue. And a part of me was thinking, well, maybe it's okay. But then I was like, no, because this is a huge precursor to the sun and moon duel. It's got, and I was going to put it in there anyway, guys, I'm joking. But I was like, this has got to be in here. It's a huge thing.
Speaking of that duel in Arc 3, I thought it was interesting that it only stopped because of Sakura. And then when we finally get to that moment in New Trials, but the only reason they got away with it is because they purposely distracted Sakura. I don't remember 100%. I feel like it was probably Kai who was distracting her, but she was purposely left in the dark so that they could have this battle. We have a scene where Miho was rubbing it in Sharon's face that Sakura would rather confine in Ariel instead of him, and that threw me off. And maybe it kind of fits the snarky character that we first meet, but by the time she evolves, she becomes more respectful of her elders, Kai notwithstanding.
I don't know. Because I think she's very much a character that just likes to mess with people. And so I don't know. I could kind of see her still kind of doing that, just teasing him, because I think it definitely fits Miho actually more in arc 4, in my opinion, than what it does in this arc 1 where we meet her. Because I would think it'd be the opposite. Because I would think since she was just meeting him, she still sort of has a crush on him at this point, that it'd be respectful Miho. Whereas by arc 4, they're all super comfortable and good friends. And then she'd be like, hey, you dork, look, like your girl's like feels more comfortable being all comfortable with Eero, not you. What do you think about that? So yeah, it is kind of like a weird scene for sure.
It's like I just remembered when like I think it's beginning of arc 3 and the gang comes to visit Sakura and Syaoran and they have to like pretend that they're not living each other and Miho's trying to poke holes into their story.
Like holding up the cheerleading baton. He's like, it's a ninja weapon.
This is for martial arts. Ooh, ah.
Oh my God, I can't wait. I cannot wait to start arc 2. I'm so excited.
So we get an Erica and Mike age gap. She's 14, he's 22. That's 8 years. Big yikes. But then when you think about it, the Rika Terada gap is even wider. So in this world, we will look the other way, even though in our world, never gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, well, even how old are they in arc 4?
Well,
Are
that's
they?
it. She's 16 and he's 24.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
not even like an adult yet.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we get to New Year's Eve. I think it's a bit bland that everybody is wearing black. At least in the next chapter, where we'll have some more color.
It is true though, in New York City, especially on like the galas and stuff that they have, everyone wears black. Everybody. It's very true.
So Sakura's first slow dance in New Trials is with Aaron.
Of course it is.
I love the expectation versus reality with Syaoran and Erica. It's like Sakura looks at them, it's like, oh, he looks like he's having such a good time. And then we have Erica, oh my God, you're sitting at my feet. Oh,
It's such a good scene. It really is. Because it's like the two different perspectives of how they're interpreting the scene is just so funny. It's so funny.
So Sakura gets lured away from the party by a cloaked figure. And that's when the invisible makes its attack and makes her in like she pretty much doesn't see anybody. So like when I think of invisible, I think of it basically as invisibility cloak, Harry Potter style. But it looks like these powers go beyond that, and I forgot all about this.
Yeah, it's definitely a complex card. And like she says at the end, it's a card that has many uses. And I'm trying to think if she's used it again in New Trials. Has
She has
she?
most definitely used it later in New Trials, yes.
Okay, okay. I'm sure we'll talk about that when we get to the
Yeah.
forces.
I can't pinpoint the exact moment, but I know that definitely she uses it. Maybe it's the
Okay.
High Kai because he's a criminal. Like that's what my I
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's ringing a bell. Yeah, I think she uses it on the locket when they're running away from the Tokyo
yeah.
police force or something. Yeah, that's ringing a bell.
Yeah,
Hmm
something
hmm
criminal
hmm
related, something Kai related, but I remember
hmm
that the invisible like does come back in action.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're 100% right. Yep. Hmm
Okay, so I'm really glad that Sharon got the gang together and asks for everyone's help. Um, Tomoyo calls it Ariel's action plan number 4, Sharon's self-dignity and pride. I didn't really get that one because if he was too proud, he wouldn't have asked for help. So that one kind of went over my head.
I wonder if she meant Syaoran's ability to put his pride and stuff aside. I wonder if there was meant to be an aside in there and maybe it accidentally got left out. Because to me, that makes sense because he's putting his pride and dignity aside to help Sakura because he's in love with
I
her.
think that's one way to interpret it. Or yeah, like he's got pride. Everyone does. But if he's gonna put it aside, like if ever he's gonna put it aside, it's to help Sakura. Mhm.
Yes. And this is our first kind of precursor for the Alliance of the Stars of everyone getting together to battle forces together. So love to see that.
Yes, I have that in my notes. So finally, Sharon tracks her down and they have a much needed conversation for her to trust him again. And that's when the invisible starts to lose its grip and Sakura recognizes and trusts Sharon. And I feel like we've hit a real turning point of their relationship.
It's really our first SNS scene we've had since the sunrise scene, right?
Yes, yes, because ever since then, it's like we had the bridge scene and they've just been at odds with each other. And yeah, like they fought the Twister together, and we did get that nice moment at Christmas where he gave her the gift, but we didn't have anything of this level for sure since the
Yeah.
sunrise scene.
Yeah. Yeah. And that time where he also that same chapter where he saved her from like the branch crashing down and stuff like that. But yeah, this is our first time. And this back hug stuff with him whispering stuff into her ear, it comes back. It comes back. So this is also kind of like not only a an amazing SNS scene that we've had in a while, but it's also like just kind of a foreshadow sort of just more of these type of scenes that are to come in this story. And I love this and I wish there was more fan art for this specific moment because I love it.
Wish-chan once said, I've always valued a good hug more than a good kiss. And if you think back of New Trust, I even made a collage of all of the instances, all the fan arts with like they're hugging each other, or Sakura's back hugging Syaoran, or Syaoran's back hugging Sakura. And there's just so many like wonderful fan arts out there. There's so many wonderful moments in New Trials. So it makes us happy.
I mean, there's a
Uh,
lot to be said that if your partner can be there for you and convey their feelings to you just by holding you without having to like kiss you, I think that's when you know you're with the right person. 100%. I totally agree with Wish Chan.
and of course, Miho ruins a moment. This does flow nicely, though, into Aerial Action Plan number 5, Sharon's inability to restrain his true heart and emotions for too long.
Yes.
Honestly, so glad that we got here. So glad we got to this point. It's just what we needed after all of this like turmoil and tribulation that Sakura went through.
Oh my gosh. Like this stalker really, really messed up her head. Like it really got in there.
So once the gang's together, Sakura makes a game plan to go after the explosive, the invisible, and the stalker, which they're still calling the unknown. And I love it when we see Card Mistress Sakura in control. And we get a great battle. Everyone is against the stalker, against the amazing backdrop of the explosive. And it's like, this is a scene. It would have just been so amazing to see it animated.
Yes, I was going to mention that to you too. This would have just been a perfect animated scene, really. Like just a montage of them just capturing this force together. It was so good, so good.
I think it's definitely the most intense battle that we've seen so far in New Trials. And in my notes, I wrote this is probably the most Alliance of the Stars battles that we got before the Alliance was formed.
Mm-hmm. Because even down to Sakura being the leader and being like, this is what you guys are going to do. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I need you to do. And the fact that and this is also a scene that I love because she figured out the explosive before Syaoran did. So it's her being like, see, I'm actually smarter than what you give me credit for. Which, I love that Wish Chan does that, where she really makes Sakura not only like such a good leader, but she really does say, yeah, she's kind of ditzy, but she's very smart. Like she really is very smart. And I love that Wish Chan does that.
So the Stalker, Explosive, Invisible, all captured. I just want to note that in the future, when Clamp releases Clear Card, they have a card called the Lucid, which pretty much does the same thing as Wish Chan's Invisible.
Say it once, I'll say it again. They know new trials exist.
Yeah. So when all that is over, the gang, except for SNS, are in Times Square. And honestly, I may watch the ball drop every year, but New York is the last place that I would ever want to be.
Oh my, it is insanely stupid. Like it is so busy. You can't walk. It is packed. Like Times Square, like you can't even get near Times Square. Even like people will get to their spots like 3 days beforehand just to like hold a spot, and it's crazy. I never went because I'm not a crowd person anyways, but even from like if you have a like a loft or an apartment or something and you're forever away, you could hear the crowd and see, and it's so big. No thanks. Long story short, no thanks.
And I think it's fun to note that Kai is in this scene too, even though we technically don't know it yet.
That's true. I forgot about that.
So Choya realizes that Sakura isn't with them, and we get Ariel's next action plan, and which is number 5, brotherly protection gets in the way. It's like, what a weird action plan. It's sometimes these action plans are like they hit the nail on the head, and other times they're like, huh? I'm just recording them for posterity, but whether they make sense or not, I really do want to hit all of them in this podcast. Yeah, because I don't even get the plan because it doesn't even sound like an action plan. It sounds like an obstacle. Brotherly protection gets in the way. Maybe it's about like them sidestepping it to still be together. Um,
Or, I mean, Toya is kind of a huge reason that Syaoran leaves after losing his powers. When Sakura does the whole heal thing eventually. So he does kind of get in the way then. But then he's also kind of the reason they sort of get back together in arc 4 too.
So our last scene is Sakura and Sharon on the roof, and I'm not even going to question how they got there in the first place.
Oh,
I
there's
love,
fire escapes.
oh yeah, I loved Sakura's inner monologue during the countdown, but girl, yes, you would be crazy if you decide to shout, "I love you, Sharon."
But again, it makes you just be like, I just can't help but to wonder if she was honest with him and if she just let him know how she felt. I really think his entire resolve would just completely crumble and he would just be like, I'm just kidding. I've loved you this whole time and I'm so sorry. Please forgive me.
Oh,
But again, we wouldn't have new trial.
no, I think she's just being swept away with the romance of it all. Like, she's hasn't felt this close to Sharon in a long time, and the fireworks are very nice, and he makes a special cherry blossom one for her.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so we get the last aerial action plan, which makes sense this time. When the two of them are alone, they are capable of anything.
Indeed.
It was a nice scene between Tomoyo and Ariel, but I did think that it was a bit presumptuous of her that she's like, "Oh, I always know what you're thinking" to Ariel. But like, at the end of the day, if anyone can get away with that, it's our Tomoyo.
Well, I think she likes kind of putting him in his place a little bit too, which was why I just think they make the best couple because she's the only one that can stand on even footing with him. I'd be like, yeah, you think no one can read your mind, but guess what, buddy? I know exactly what you're thinking. And I love that. I love it.
Okay. Now we're moving on to fan art spotlight. And I told Melanie that I have a surprise for her, so I'm sending it now.
I forgot this existed. It's my fan art.
Completed in September 2020, this was drawn by our very own Melanie after she finished reading Arc 1, and she wanted to commemorate the arc with a meaningful drawing. And
Oh my
I had
God.
a gut feeling that Melanie would just have forgotten all about this, which is why I waited until this point of the podcast to send it to her.
Oh, it's amazing how you know me so well at this point. Because yeah, I completely forgot this existed. Oh, that's and here I was just like, I wish there was more fan arts for this moment. Oh, I'm like crying. I'm laughing so much. Oh, you
I
guys, when you
really
see this,
like I really like this piece. Melanie's only shared it with me, so this is going to be the first time that it's shared with the fandom.
for good reason.
No, no, I really love how we can see Sakura's anguish, and I just adore the way that Sharon is holding her so close. And like the way that we see his hair, we know that his head is bowed down a bit. So the way you captured that, absolutely perfect.
Well, thank you. And I cannot draw hands, so everyone just we're just gonna pretend he's wearing gloves because it's really cold in New York.
Hey, it's winter.
It is,
Sakura was wishing she had her coat. This is totally legit.
Oh my God, you're too funny. I completely forgot all about that. That's so funny.
I was waiting for this very moment for a long time.
Sneaky, sneaky Priya.
Moving on to Dark Force's corner. Stalker makes an appearance in the ballroom, and that got Sakura's attention. The invisible makes Sakura think that she's invisible. The stalker is a constant presence in this chapter, and the explosive gets a few moments as well. Sakura uses the sword and the fly together. She tries to use the stone, but it doesn't work. She used the shadow to help spot it. I like that. It's like it was really hard to see the stalker, so by attaching the shadow to it, that gave her more of a fighting chance. And finally, it was the sword that took her down, but only after everyone attacked their forces at the same time. So that was very cool to see.
I think Syaoran uses the explosive again during the festival with like the Joker and all that, right?
Maybe. I don't remember.
I think so. I want to say he uses it in combination with flowery, or maybe I'm thinking of something else. But anyways, I think the explosive comes back and Syaoran uses it once more. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. The explosive definitely sounds like a card that would make a comeback. Stalker, no, it's like Sakura mentions that she's not going to use it, and she's true to her word.
Yeah. Yeah. Him and the Phantom are just buddies and they just chill in the card book together. So for the author's note, we have Happy New Year 2001. Wish-chan. All right. First off, this is my New Year's present to all my readers who have supported me all through. Thank you to all those who emailed me. I've done my best to reply, but these days I was bogged down by exams. Sorry for all the waiting. But hey, it's now been 1 year since I started new trials. Next chapter would be just fluff, the kind of stuff that Tomeo would plan for the New York trip. No more talk of darkness, Phantom of the Opera, Say You Love Me. And it'll be the concluding chapter of the New York trip. Then I can move on to the fun stuff. Grins. Do you know how long I've been waiting to get over this stuff? No, I guess not. Oh, and I know that there's lots of confusing things and unanswered things, but eventually they'll become clear. And as we all know, how could Sakura ever suspect Syaoran? Come on, we all know he's still good old Syaoran who wouldn't even think of harming Sakura, right? But we must remember the stalker card had that powerful effect. And Iroh's still the most powerful, I think. Not that Sakura and Syaoran aren't, but you know, Iroh's Iroh. Don't you think Iroh and Tomeo match each other perfectly? Brr. Don't want to even think of Kaho and Iroh. Oh, and how do you like SNS New Year's Eve countdown? Took long enough. They never seem to learn. I just love fireworks. Wouldn't a Sakura firecracker be pretty? Oh, and New York is the bomb place for Christmas and New Year's Eve, and there's no denying that. That is, if you can stand the cold.
Melanie is doing a happy dance because we have confirmation that Wish-chan ships Tomoyo and Ariel.
This has made my whole day. Literally, quote unquote, Burr, Kaho, and Iroh. Yes. I'm going to include this on the Q&A and see if President Wish-chan still agrees.
I love that. My favorite part of this author's note is the fact that she gives us a fluff chapter after all of the drama. And my one wish for new trials is like, okay, come on. We know that Sakura and Syaoran are not going to admit their true feelings to each other until the very end because that's who they are. But what I want is like an epilogue with pure SNS, boyfriend, girlfriend, you are the love of my life, fluff.
Yes, I hope we get kind of like in true K-drama style. I almost hope we get kind of like a fast forward epilogue where it's like the 5 year later scenario where Sakura is like this famous model like her mom. Syaoran's took over the clan, and then we have this like fluffy thing of them getting married or something. Like, oh, I really think Wish-chan will do that. If not like a fast forward thing, I think we'll definitely get some type of fluffiness. Because Wish-chan, we deserve it.
Like, the reason why we're in Syaoran's birthday limbo for so long is because we're like living in fluff, and once New Trials gets back on the roll, it's going to be some heavy drama.
Yeah, especially in the point that we are in Arc 4. There's a lot of loose ends that need to be tied, and whether those are ends we want to be tied, we will see.
You have anything else to say?
I don't think so. Although, well, it makes me giggle when she says, "Sorry for waiting."
Oh, Wish-chan. Oh, Wish-chan, we will wait. It's like as long as it takes. We are here. You will never find a more patient bunch.
Yes. You know I love you, and I'm just teasing you. But no, I don't have anything else to say.
You have been listening to New Trials, the podcast, where it must rain for there to be a rainbow.
You've been listening to New Trials, the podcast. Please be sure to check out the audiobook version of this fan fiction that you can find anywhere you can find this podcast. Also, please be sure to check out the Facebook fan page for New Trials, where a big part of our discussions happen nowadays. Be sure to discuss there so that you yourself might be highlighted in our Star Alliance section. Be sure to stick around next time, where Preya and I finally end Arc 1 and we discuss Chapter 20, Picture the Past.